It was close to midnight when I started the long drive home from a work trip. A two-lane highway, miles of nothing, and my GPS had already lost signal. I was about 20 miles from the next town when I saw him. A man, standing right in the middle of the road. No flashlight, no car, just him. I slowed down, honked, but he didn't do anything. Then my headlights caught a glint. A length of a wire stretched across the road between two trees. If I hadn't slowed down, it would have hit windshield height. I reversed, fast, heart hammering. The man ran toward the ditch, but two more figures stepped out behind him. I floored it in reverse until I could turn around. When I looked back, all three were standing in the road, side by side, the wire glinting in the headlights. A trooper later told me that stretch of road had reports of ambush robberies, only those victims never saw anyone alive again. Last summer, I was surveying farmland for an environmental company. Long hours alone, recording coordinates and taking soil samples. But one evening near a small Nebraska town, I noticed a woman in a cornfield, wearing a white dress with dark hair, standing perfectly still. I called out thinking she was the property owner. No answer. Then somewhere behind the field came a scream. High-pitched, terrified, and human. Then another scream. Closer, sharper, like it was coming from beneath the ground. A storm cellar door, half buried in the dirt, was right near her. And as the screams echoed, she slowly turned her head toward it. Not toward me, toward the door. I drove away as fast as I could. Later, the sheriff told me there was no cellar on that property, no footprints, and no woman. Just a scarecrow in a white dress, standing in the middle of the field. And when he asked, "You said she turned toward the cellar, right?" I realized the scarecrow was facing the road now. Two winters ago, my cousin and I were driving back roads near Glacier Park. Snow was falling hard, pitch black, and our headlights were barely cutting through. Until something ran across the road. A deer, we thought. We hit it. We stopped, hearts pounding, but there was nothing. No animal, just a handprint on the hood. It was human-sized, stretched unnaturally. Then we heard the breathing, low and wet, coming from the tree line. A shape crawled into the headlights. Its limbs were long, bent wrong, shadowy, almost human but not quite. We screamed, slammed our doors, and drove until sunrise. In the daylight, we inspected the car. Scratch marks on the passenger side, and inside the trunk, under the spare tire cover, a clump of black hair, frozen. The dash cam showed the figure before the deer appeared. It was standing at the edge of the trees, perfectly still. And when the deer ran across, it fell forward in a motion no human could, disappeared under the snow. The dashcam timestamp, 7:42 p.m. The truck clock, 7:58 p.m. 16 minutes gone. We never drove that road again. The hair in the trunk, it still sits in a bag in my garage. I moved into an old house in the suburbs a few months ago. It was cheap, quiet, and perfect for someone like me who works from home. A week after moving in, I started hearing noises from the basement. At first, I thought it was the furnace, pipes creaking, settling noises. But then I heard voices, soft whispering, incoherent but still human. I checked the basement. It was empty. Lights on, nothing moved. I assumed it was the neighbors through the walls. Then, one night, I woke to louder whispers. They were clearly coming from beneath the basement door. A soft, trembling voice said, "Please, help me." I froze. The house had been vacant for months. No one should have been down there. I called the landlord, and he laughed it off, said I was probably just imagining it. The next morning, the basement door was slightly ajar, even though I had locked it, and scratched into the floorboards directly under where I sleep. It was a word I don't recognize, just 3 letters, deep enough to draw blood if pressed. USI. I've never gone down there alone since. A friend and I rented a small cabin in the woods for a winter weekend. It was old, off the map, and surrounded by miles of forest. No phone service, and no neighbors. The first night we noticed something odd. The front door lock was broken. It worked fine when we arrived, but now it wouldn't latch. We figured the cold had warped the wood. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to knocking. 3 slow knocks on the door. I froze. My friend was asleep. Then the knocking stopped. Until I heard scratching. Light, deliberate scratches, moving up and down the door frame. I grabbed the flashlight and shined it at the door. Nothing. The scratching stopped and silence returned. I tried to go back to bed, but a few minutes later I woke again. The flashlight I left on the nightstand was on the floor, pointing at the door. I hadn't touched it, and my friend was still asleep. Then it started banging. First soft, then harder, then loud enough to rattle the walls. It felt like someone or something was trying to break in. I sat frozen, listening to the rapid, violent pounding. Every time I thought it stopped, it started again, harder than before. I wanted to run, but the cold outside and the isolation made me feel trapped. Eventually, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. silence returned. In the morning, we checked outside. No footprints, no marks, and no sign of anything. The lock, still broken. I never stayed in a cabin in the woods again. And every time I hear banging at the door now, I remember that night. I live alone in a small house in the suburbs. A few months ago, I installed one of those Ring Smart doorbell cameras that records motion and saves clips to the cloud. One night, around 3 a.m., I got a notification. Person detected at your door. I opened the live feed, but no one was there. Just a faint hum of crickets and an empty porch. The next morning, I checked the saved clip. There was a man standing perfectly still in the front of my door for almost 6 minutes. Not moving, not knocking, just staring into the camera. The weird part, the timestamp said it was recorded at 3:04 a.m. But my phone never buzzed until 3:30. The following night it happened again. Only this time, the man was closer. You could see his eyes clearly. He was smiling. I called the police. They came and looked through the footage and froze. Because when they checked the timestamp data, both clips had been uploaded manually from my account. Someone had logged into my doorbell app from another device. Here's the creepiest part. That man in the video, he was wearing the same jacket I had hanging in my hallway closet. I grew up near a forest in Oregon. One evening, I went hiking alone before sunset. About halfway back, I heard someone calling my name. At first I thought it was my dad. It had the same tone and same voice, but he was supposed to be at work. I yelled back, but the voice just kept repeating my name, each time a little closer. When I stopped responding, the woods went completely silent. No wind, no birds, just stillness. Then I heard the same voice again. This time it said, "If you don't answer, I think you're lost." It sounded like it was coming from directly behind me. I turned around, but no one was there. I ran until I reached the trailhead. My dad's car was parked in the driveway when I got home. When I told him what happened, he looked confused and said, "That's impossible. I've been home all day." But I did hear someone outside earlier calling your name. I travel a lot for work, so motels are pretty normal for me. One night I checked into a cheap place off the highway. The front desk clerk said only one guest was staying, exactly in the room next to mine. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to banging on the wall we shared. Not rhythmic, but frantic, desperate, like someone punching or kicking it from the other side. I yelled, asked if they were okay. No response. The noise stopped for a while. Then I heard a faint voice say, "Don't open the door." I froze. The voice was coming from inside my room. I turned on the lights. Nothing, but the bathroom door was closed. I grabbed my keys and bolted out into the parking lot. The next morning, police were everywhere. The clerk told me the guest in the room next to mine had been found dead, and had been dead since yesterday afternoon. No one ever figured out who I heard that night, or why the voice came from my room. I moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood last spring. Every house looked the same. White siding, trimmed lawns, and identical mailboxes. But across the street, there was one house that always had its curtains drawn shut, even during the day. At night, though, there was always a faint light inside. Never bright, just that dim yellow glow of a single lamp in a living room. One evening, I was taking out the trash when I noticed the curtain move. Someone was watching me from behind it. I froze. The fabric barely shifted, but I could see a shadow, the outline of a person standing perfectly still. The next night, the same thing. When I came outside, the light in the house clicked on and the curtain twitched. This went on for a week. Finally, I decided to walk over and knock. When I got close enough to the window, I realized the curtain wasn't moving at all. It was pinned in place, and the shadow wasn't moving either. I stepped onto the porch and looked through a small gap in the curtain. The living room was completely empty. No furniture, no lamp. Just an old CRT television sitting on the floor, playing a loop of my own front yard from the night before. When I got home, my living room light was on, and my curtain was already closed. About a year ago, I rented a small storage unit after moving into a smaller apartment. Just a metal door, concrete floor, and a fluorescent light that took forever to flick on. I only went there maybe once a month to grab old boxes. But after a few visits, I noticed something strange. My boxes weren't where I left them. At first, I figured the staff had moved them during cleaning, but when I asked, they said they never touched tenants' units. One day, I decided to place a small piece of masking tape across the inside of the door, a simple way to tell if someone opened it. When I came back 2 weeks later, the tape was broken, and there was a new box inside. It wasn't mine. It was unmarked and about medium-sized. There wasn't any dust on it. It looked like it had just been placed there. I opened it. Inside were VHS tapes, about a dozen of them, each labeled with dates spanning the past 6 months. Curiosity got the better of me. That night, I borrowed a friend's old player and watched one. The footage was grainy and handheld. It showed my storage unit, empty except for me walking in and out, moving boxes, sometimes just standing there. Every tape was from a different visit I'd made. Someone had been recording me the entire time. I went back the next morning with the manager, but the box was gone. No tapes, no footprints, nothing on the security logs. But when the manager tried to unlock my unit, he said the key didn't fit. The lock had been changed overnight, and on the new lock, written in faint marker, were the same 6 digits that had been printed on every VHS label. If you somehow made it this far, I would really appreciate if you could like and subscribe, as it helps me pump out more videos and keep going. Thank you. And until next time, goodbye.